Is your business burning through cash faster than you are able to bring in revenues? Are you still not able to pay yourself a decent salary big enough for you to leave that full-time job and actually do your business full-time? Are you super reliant on loans, lines of credit just to sustain your business? Are you paying financial hopscotch in order to figure out which bill gets paid first based on what monies are coming in and out of your company? If you are a bigger business, do you notice that your cash reserves are declining? Your revenues are not increasing? These are all symptoms of cash flow problems. And let me tell you, cash flow problems, like poor cash flow management, is the cause of more small business failure rate than you can imagine. We must understand cash flow management as business owners. We must understand what it is, why we need it, because if we do not understand it, our companies will slowly and silently die right from under our nose. Only about 40% of small businesses track their cash flow daily or weekly. Is that you? Approximately 60% of small business owners feel they don't have strong financial knowledge, making cash flow tracking a challenge. Don't worry, we're gonna address that in this video today. 82% of small businesses fail due to poor cash flow management or lack of understanding of financials. And a JP Morgan Chase study found that the median small business has only 27 days of cash buffer on hand. Listen, we are going to dive into cash flow management. What does that look like? What do we need to know about it? And we're gonna start from the surface and dig all the way down. Are you ready? Here we go. What is cash flow? Because you gotta know what it is before you know how to manage it. Cash flow is the total net amount of money being transferred into and out of the company. So what do I mean? Revenues coming in minus expenses going out. That answer to that equation is your cash flow number. We like to see a positive cash flow. So that's like if you're bringing in $50,000 in revenue for the month and you are expending $20,000 a month, you have a positive cash flow of $30,000. I'm using those numbers because, you know, these are the type of numbers that we want in our companies, or even more. Even if you're a startup, if you're bringing in $2,000 worth of revenues and you are expending $4,000 in revenues, you have a negative $2,000 cash flow. And that is not good. But then you would say, hey, Kawana, how can I be spending money that's not there? I can only spend the money that's in my bank. See, that is the conundrum. What can happen in many businesses, this is what can happen. You land a deal for $60,000, for $10,000, for $20,000, choose one. You land a deal, but that deal came at a one-time landing. Okay? And then you have all these other little revenues that come in. Your revenues coming in can go up and down and up and down and up and down. So you land this deal for $60,000. And then the next month you only bring in $10,000, but you expend $40,000. So the month that you brought in $10,000, you expend $40,000. You can spend it because you had the $60,000 that came in the month before. That's why it's there. But that negative $30,000 is eating into your $60,000. And you do that too often, and before you know it, you're at zero. Your company has failed. You have run out of money. Imagine now that being a problem on a bigger scale. Imagine you have $10 million that came in. You're inching away at 50,000 came in that month and 70,000 went out. In your brain, because you have that 10 million, you're not paying attention to these negative cash flow issues that are coming in monthly. Literally, your business could be dying under your nose without you realizing it. Because the bigger the amount of money that are coming in, the less likely you are to keep up with it if you have not created good habits for your cash flow management hygiene for your business. This is why it is so important. I want you to think of cash flow like a river that is fed by the ocean. A river comes in, the source is the ocean, all right? It then expends. It feeds the grass and the trees and it drops off minerals and everything like that, and then it exits in another area in the ocean. What tends to happen to a lot of companies is the river gets fed by the ocean, and then it goes, and guess what? The ocean dries up. So the ocean is huge. Can it really dry up? But the point is the lake dries up. Fine, it comes from a lake. The lake dries up. When the lake dries up, your river is gonna stop flowing. So cash flow, you always have to have something coming in that's greater, that's bigger than what you have going out. That's the only way it's gonna continue that flow. All right, so now that we have what is cash flow, how does it work for your business? I want you to be able to understand the concept of how that works with your business. Whenever I'm digging down into these principles, you know I'm gonna go to the scripture. So where we're gonna go is Genesis 41. In Genesis chapter 41, we have the story of the Pharaoh of Egypt having this horrendous dream. The dream was that he saw 7 fat cows, and then he saw 7 skinny cows. And the 7 skinny cows devoured the 7 fat cows. And he was just like, what does that even mean? And then, to make it worse, he had another dream where he had these 7 large stalks of corn, like they were beefy. And then 7 skinny, not beefy stalks of corn came. And the 7 non-beefy stalks of corn, the skinny ones, ate up the big ones. He's just like, what is this? What does this mean? He asked his magicians. He asked his advisors. He's like, somebody better tell me what this means. Listen, have you ever had a situation where it is messing with your brain? You cannot sleep because you're like, what does this mean? Why is this in my dream? And why does it keep reoccurring? I'm sure you understand it because I know you guys go to bed sometimes on your pillow thinking to yourself, what can I do better with my business? How can I make it more profitable? I get it. All right. So here it comes. He is asking. The butler came to Pharaoh and said, hey, when I was in prison, there was a guy in there that's a Hebrew, and he was able to interpret dreams. Like I had a dream, he interpreted it. It turned out just as he said. You might want to go see what he has to say about this. He was like, go and get Joseph. So, Joseph comes in. Well, first he has to get cleaned up. You're getting before a king. Like he gets straightened up. He gets clean shaven, whatever the case may be, presentable to come to before the king. So he gets there and the king is like, you don't understand. I'm having these dreams. It's these 2 dreams. They come in pairs and it's just driving me crazy. No one can tell me what the issue is. And I was told that you would be able to tell me the interpretation. Of course, Joseph gives glory to God. God will give you the interpretation. I just imagine him sitting there like, God will give it to you. Anyway, Pharaoh tells him the dream. Joseph goes, hey, these 2 dreams are one. And God is telling you the future. He's letting you know what is about to happen. And he's like, well, what is about to happen? So Joseph says, okay, there are going to be 7 years of plenty and abundance here in Egypt. 7 years. Like whatever you plant is just gonna flourish and become amazing, like just bountiful. And then right after those 7 years, you're gonna have 7 years of famine where there is nothing. You can't plant anything if you tried to. It'll be famine, it'll be drought, it'll be a mess. Joseph said that is what is to be. It's so funny because in that story, Joseph doesn't just come with the problem. Can we pause there? He comes with a solution as well. Come on, somebody, for solutions. So he comes with a solution. However, in order for him to come with a solution, he had to understand the principles and concepts of cash flow management. He had to, because pretty much if we look at what solution he brought to the table, it literally follows the principles of cash flow management, like good cash flow management. All right. So what does he do? 1, he creates a plan to store grain during the 7 good years. Why would he store grain? Well, he knew famine was coming. And he's like, look, we can't just live for these 7 years. We have to plan for when we won't have. He literally put some cash reserves aside, or his grain reserves, come on, puts his grain reserves aside, 20% of it. How many of us today can put away 20% of our revenue? Do we do that? Put that in the comments. Do you have business savings? Put it in the comments. He creates a plan to store grain during the 7 good years. And he put that thing in a system. I'm big on systems. He made sure it was systematic. It wasn't these, arbitrarily just throw something in there. It was a systematic putting away of 20% of the grain that was grown. Okay? Number 2, he ensures Egypt has enough reserves reserves to survive the famine. He was counting until he couldn't count anymore because he wanted to ensure that Egypt had enough for the famine. So what did he have to do? He probably had to check how much grain is used on a daily basis in Egypt, on a weekly basis in Egypt, on a monthly basis in Egypt, to ensure that he would have that much for the 7 years. Because then you gotta multiply, like, by 7 years. Okay, this is how much grain we used in the first year. That is our burn rate. We literally burned through this much grain in a year. And if that is what it is on average, then multiply that by 7 years, that's how much grain minimum we can have stored away. He was checking the books. He was making sure he was tracking his grain flow management. He was tracking his grain flow. We must do the same with our cash flow. Track it. What are we burning through? And how much do we need to be bringing in? He was also tracking how much grain they were bringing in, how much grain was being harvested and grown in Egypt. He had to have known that number to know what 20% of that would be. This is why it's so important. I'm telling you, so many amazing gems in the scriptures. All right, cash flow is about preparation. Many businesses go bankrupt not because they don't make money, but because they don't know how to hold and distribute cash properly, okay? Joseph didn't just rely on Egypt's good years. He planned ahead, okay? So let's look at what this looks like in modern day, because you know I love my good case studies, all right? So we're gonna dive deep into Apple. Yes, we are. Now, for all my Android users, please just at least stay to hear the insight from Apple. I get that there's this whole thing, Apple, Android, Apple, Android. Hey, let's put that aside and let us dig deep into some knowledge that's gonna help with your businesses. Apple is one of the richest companies in the world, but do you know what's even more impressive? How much cash they keep on hand. Apple, from the time I was doing this case study, holds over $200 billion in cash reserves. And even when sales dip, they have enough stored wealth to keep growing, to keep investing, and they don't spend everything that they earn. So let's talk about this real quick. Believe it or not, there will always be something that you can spend money on. Always. Always. But you have to be disciplined. That's why with Joseph, and just like with Apple, you gotta systematize building out your cash reserves. Remember what the stats said. Most businesses only have 27 days worth of cash on hand. So literally, businesses are hanging by a thread month to month, hoping that they make it. No more. Cash flow is key. Let's talk about why Apple does. Let's really dig down. Number one, it protects against economic downturns. Just like Joseph's famine strategy, Apple prepares for market slowdowns. One thing I always share with my clients, please be aware of where the economy is. Please be aware, stay on current events. For instance, many people are struggling because of the tariff wars that are going between America and Canada, are having these back and forth because their people are being affected. All this is happening, and I am noticing that many small business owners are coming around like, I was caught unawares. I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Meanwhile, big business literally saw that the minute that Trump was president, they knew tariffs were coming because his whole campaign was about tariffs coming and all types of things, whatever. So they literally front loaded their products from these countries before it got signed. These tariff issues got signed. It's very important that you are aware of what is to come. But what if you don't know what is coming? What if you don't know? See, God gave Pharaoh a dream and that let him know. But what if you don't know? Like for instance, with the pandemic, a lot of people didn't know that the pandemic was gonna happen, and that was a global pandemic. That was crazy. And a lot of companies fell because of that. A lot of companies flourished too and opened up their doors and started their businesses then. But the point is that a lot of them went down. Why? Because cash flow problems. The government tried to help people with, here in the US at least, with PPP loans and all types of grants and handouts and bailouts. They were trying. But the truth of the matter is, many of these businesses did not have proper cash flow management hygiene. Their funds were being mismanaged. And so they felt it. and they had to close their doors. They didn't have enough reserves on hand. Well, Apple is not about that life. Number one, to protect against economic downturns. Number two, another reason why they do this, strategic investments. Apple waits for the right moment to invest in new technologies and companies. They always got to be on the cutting edge. They always got to make sure that the new technologies, the companies that they bring in, be profitable to them. They don't want to always have to take loans out for that. Number three, avoiding debt dependence. So by keeping billions in cash, Apple doesn't have to borrow heavily like many other corporations. There is a difference between leveraging business debt, which I'm in total agreement with. Okay, you can leverage the debt and become profitable off of debt. You can do that as a business. However, if you are reliant on debt just for the sustenance of your company, just to keep it afloat, that is definitely not a good practice. Having cash reserves is a great strategy to help with your cash flow management so you do not become debt dependent. Just like Egypt during the famine, Apple stays strong even when competitors struggle. You know what's amazing about this strategy that we're talking about today? I just want to explain to you the impact of this strategy. You ready? Number one, if you go back into the scriptures, it said that Joseph fed the world. He didn't just feed Egypt. People came from around the world to get grain. Talk about building up a superpower back then. Talk about sustaining. Not only was Egypt able to sustain itself, it was able to sustain the companies that came to it for food. That is crazy. That is the impact of such a powerful strategy. That's what I'm saying. I'm giving some tea today, y'all. I hope you're taking notes. How can we add this into your business today so that you can take advantage of these money plays? You ready? Here are 3 things I want you to consider. Number one, store cash during your high seasons, which means that you actually have to know your high seasons. So what do we mean by high seasons? For some, it's very easy to figure that out. If you are a tax accountant, if you are a snowplow company, you have seasons. There's tax season, and you probably get a lot of revenue and clientele during that tax season, and then it kind of trickles down with other things. When it's snowing outside, as a snowplow company, you get tons of business. But then in the spring, summer, that's your down season. So you want to ensure that you have enough reserves to carry you through the down seasons. It's like when animals store away their nuts, or when bears store up fat in their bodies by eating a lot so they can hibernate during the winter. When your business is booming, don't spend everything. Save for the slow month, and it will happen. There will be slow months. Even if you have a business that's year round, it's not seasonal, there will be slow months. During the pandemic, those were slow years. Just putting it out there. It will happen. Build a famine fund. Set up a business emergency fund so you're never desperate for cash. If you are desperate for cash, you're going to make desperate decisions, and desperate decisions leads to the downfall of a company. It does. You make terrible decisions, your company is going to pay for it. And a lot of people who are desperate go for loans, go for all these types of things that they're not in the best interest of the company, because now they're just desperate. They're grasping at straws. So have your plan in place. And lastly, don't overcommit to expenses. Make sure that you're keeping your expenses low. I did a video on that. Do not overcommit to expenses, so that you have enough cash flow to put some aside for a rainy day, for all these things that we're talking about. Now, how many of us are actually tracking our cash flow? Back in the day when we didn't have all these online tools, people used to take out their checkbook ledger and they would literally write out what they brought in and what they spent money on, their expenses. And then they would take the difference and they would be checking their patterns. Now we have tools, QuickBooks, FreshBooks, whatever, all these different tools that you can use to track your cash flow. Start practicing. Now, if you don't have QuickBooks and you don't have any of those fancy schmancy tools, we do offer a tool in our community. You can join our community to get it. It's like free for the first week or so. So you can go in there, get the tool, start tracking your cash. You need to see how you are spending your money, how much revenue is coming in, what the pattern patterns are. You might have seasons in your business and you're not even aware of it because you haven't tracked it. To look at the trends in your industry, in your business. These are things you must learn to do. If you want to learn more about how to do all of that and you want more video content on that, put it in the comments. But my question is for you. What's your plan for managing cash flow? Do you already have a plan in place that you're using that's effective? Type it in the comments. Do you not have a plan and you need one? Type it in the comments. I'm curious to see how because you have to understand that my goal is to annihilate the small business failure rate globally. That's my goal. I want it that as the small business failure rate is going down, people are like, where is this coming from? It's coming from this YouTube channel right here. That's what I want. Are you preparing for famine seasons like Joseph? Drop a comment. I want to hear your strategy, all right? So that you can flourish and you and your business can thrive. Stay blessed. I will see you at the next video.